Представляю Майкла. Michael. Uh, Michael will talk about the development of Game of Thrones games. So please welcome, speaker is coming.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here in Moscow. It's my first time in your wonderful city. Just a little bit about me. My name's Mike Swanson, of course. I'm currently a senior producer at Bigpoint Entertainment in Berlin. I've been there for about a year now. But I want to talk today about a game we're doing called Game of Thrones. And more specifically, I want to focus in on the design and art and technology that we're using to create and recreate Westeros. So maybe what I could do is get a show of hands. How many of you are Game of Thrones fans? Good, that's probably why you're here. So we've got quite a challenge ahead of us, trying to recreate something that people feel so passionately about in Game of Thrones. So Westeros itself has a very rich legacy to it from the books. It spans back thousands of years. It's also, history is ongoing. So you have the books that talk about Westeros, and then you also have the TV show that talks about Westeros. Just for context, our game is based on the HBO series of Game of Thrones, and so we do tend to deviate a bit from the books. Let's see if I can, the wrong button. Did I break it already? That's awesome. There we go. So one of the reasons I chose to do this topic, I could have talked about anything that we've done with our game design, but I decided to talk a little bit more about the creation of the world, because when I started in the industry around 22 years ago, I started out as an artist, making 3D worlds. More specifically, I started out creating 3D stadiums for electronic arts, for FIFA soccer, for AAA baseball, and NHL hockey. Then I moved on into an art management role, but still working on games that had very, very large worlds. So again, I've worked mainly for a lot of RPG and RTS games. Again, these games usually have very big levels, and one of the things that I want to talk about today is sort of some of the problems that we have with this, and specifically the problem that we're trying to solve in recreating Westeros. So the problem that we have here is we want to recreate faithfully the look and feel of Westeros in a richly detailed game. The challenge for us is we want to do this in a game that runs in a web browser and runs on low-spec machines. So historically, most web browser games have been 2D, and they still are 2D, or if they're 3D, they've been much smaller games. So Game of Thrones, Seven Kingdoms, what we want to change is we want to create this huge, huge world in 3D, playable in a browser. So it's a really big challenge, but as technology has moved forward, it's allowing us to create worlds that you would typically see in some of the more downloadable client games on the PC. So again, we would have probably a much richer and bigger world, and I've been designing it a lot differently if it were just a download game. But again, just keep in mind that this is a game that's going to be running through a web browser. So this is an image from the game. Again, this is all pre-alpha. We're still in mid-production right now. As you can see, the game right now is this is just a very small section of Westeros that we have, and you can see it's connected by roads. We have cities, we have keeps, we have little army camps, as you zoom in, there we go, the camera will actually zoom in and we'll get more detail on the ground. You'll get more shrubs and animals. So the game, as the camera will zoom in, the world will even have more and more detail. And one of the reasons that we're able to do that is with a very finely tuned LOD system. So I'll come back to that in a bit. I just want to talk a little bit about Westeros for some people here who may not know the lore as much. So in Westeros, there's 7 kingdoms that occupy the different regions of Westeros. Each of those kingdoms has, it looks different architecturally, it looks different with the environment. So in the north, up at the wall, you have a snow-filled region. Down south, you have a desert-like region. And the other thing about Westeros is, and this is a really big challenge for us, it's vertical. So if you were a game designer creating a world out of scratch, you'd probably make it more like a square. That way you'd have something contained that you can move around in. So one of the big challenges that we've had in the design side is for traveling around, if you want to travel from the southern region to the very top in our game, it will probably take you well over an hour. So some of the design decisions we had to make in the game, since we want people to be able to travel around from the south up to the wall, it was actually pretty boring just to ride up there on your horse. So we've had to implement some other changes around the game design to make it so that you can move around this very large world. But again, sort of the vertical scale of it has given us some challenges because we can't zoom out to see the whole thing. As you can see here, it's hard to see any of the city names because it's so shrunk down just to fit on a screen. So how big is Westeros? Westeros is supposed to be about 7,000 kilometers long, which is roughly the size of South America. The wall is about 500 kilometers long. So this gigantic scale for us poses another design problem that we've been solving. Is it's hard to do things at actual scale, have buildings and have people and players running around. So we've had to make some design choices around the size of buildings and around the size of characters so you can see them on the map. So the wall, in reality here, the wall, the height of it is much smaller compared to the buildings that you can see in the bottom there. In the TV series, that building would be much, much smaller. But for visibility reasons, we've increased the size of it just so that the player knows exactly where they have to go and they can click on the building. So we've had to modify the scale of buildings and trees and animals and people just to make sure that the gameplay is perfect. Otherwise, if we went with an actual scale, the game would be very, very difficult to play because it would be much, much larger. Here's another region, just show you the snow. This is just a screenshot of the southern region. This is a desert. This is a part of the game that we haven't populated yet. This is just an empty region. I just wanted to show it to you so you can get an idea of the different type of ecosystems that we have in the game. So, speaking about that blank area, so Game of Thrones, Seven Kingdoms, it's a web game. It's also a live game. So as the game starts out, we'll have a couple of factions to start with, but we'll be adding more of those as the series and as the game progresses. So again, we're creating a game that could live on for 10 years, 20 years, however long it needs to. And during that time, we're going to want to expand the game to show more regions, to show more houses as they progress in the series. And we'll also start making up some of our own content as well. So we actually need enough space on the map to expand over time. And we'll be opening those up during the development of the game and when the game goes live. I'll just show you just a couple of snapshots that we've been using for our inspiration, just sort of showing the diversity of the environments. one of the Baratheon region with the broadleaf trees, Lannister region that's very rocky, showing the northern Stark region with a lot of evergreen trees, and the Dorne region, obviously very desert, sort of a Arabic influence on it. So just quickly cover some of the tools that we use. We have our own proprietary game engine that we use. And we also use another one called Nebula. We use World Builder to create our terrains. We use brushes, and I'll go into that in a little bit. Because our game is so big, any changes that the design team does can affect the art team. So we could end up making one small change in design that could have the artist go back and recreate the world and take weeks and weeks of development. So we have a way of brushing on all of our level design and all our roads, and I'll go into that in a little bit. We also use as much off-the-shelf software as we possibly can. Maya 5, Artisy, which is a great level design tool, various texture making tools, and a lot of proprietary tools that we create on our own. Oh, did I jump ahead here? There we go. So, just sort of diving into a couple of technical facts in the game. So, one of the ways that we're able to have such a large world and jump around quickly on it and scale it up and open up new regions is the way we use our servers. Typically, and if some of you have worked on AAA games or large games, typically you're going to stream in your levels in a game. In a web browser game, you can't really stream in giant large levels just due to the latency. It's going to hop and skip. One of the things that we do is our game is split up into many different servers that are very transparent to the user. As you move around, you're actually moving onto different servers. And this is something that's sort of very unique to this game. One of the first games that I've worked on that does this, that as a player, you don't even know that you've jumped to another server when you're riding around. We use some interesting tricks to hide that, preloading textures, preloading models. But everything is still technically on the same map. If you were to bring the camera back and you see the entire world, you would still be on the same map, except you're all split up into different servers. The other thing, and the other challenge about our game is, it's a persistent game. So everything that you do in the world, everyone else playing will see. The same thing that you can see everything else that everybody else is doing. And that poses a couple of challenges for game designers and artists, is that one, it's hard to have a very largely populated world when you have everything that's persistent. So again, we use servers that are layered so that more players can be in one region and still playing with each other, even though they're all on different servers. So we do a layered approach like that so that we can scale up. If one region gets full, we can open up another region on top of that very quickly. The other thing with the persistent state is, having players affect everything in the game at one point can hit servers really hard. And so we've had to do tricks to avoid getting the server hit from all of our players. And one of the reasons of that is we do this layered approach so that people playing with each other are actually on different servers, but they're still playing with each other. And it can be a confusing concept. But maybe if you have any questions, I can try and answer that later on. If some of you actually do server coding, you will probably get that concept a little easier. It's a difficult one to describe. Again, here's just one of the keeps here. So if I'm a player and I'm going to add banners to this keep, everybody will see them. So again, what we want to have is a very rich world where you can see what your neighbors do and your neighbors can see what you do in the world. Again, this is going to be all in 3D, running on a web browser. So, one of this, I think, especially for this type of conference, I know a lot of people that I've talked to here are indeed developers, a lot of engineers here, so I made an addition of some sort of technical facts to go into the development of our world that I thought people might find a little bit interesting. Just a couple of the steps that we go through just to create one section of the world here. So the terrain is generated in World Machine 2. We export it as a tiled export, and then we create our height maps and our color maps. Then we export it to our Nebula engine, and then our Nebula engine generates LODs, the level of detail for the terrain. And that is sort of one of the keys to why our game runs fast enough to run in a web server is the level of detail. Everything in the game has an LOD to it. As you back the camera up, the LOD system kicks in, so we drop out all of our effects at one range. We drop out all of the details on the trees as we back out, and as you go back in again, as the camera focuses in on one area, then we increase all of the details, even up to having little bunny rabbits that jump around. And step 3 is a lot of our models and our animations are exported from Maya using a granny export. Those things get thrown into the game. The trees, we do a point cloud, have locators in Maya, and then we export those to the game engine. And the trees are one thing I call out here because there's thousands and thousands of trees in the game. And not just one type of tree. We have, many hundreds of trees of different variety and different sizes that we slap down all over the world. Most of them are pretty low poly, but just the volume of trees that you need to make a world look realistic is incredible. We also have a node network that we use to have players move around in the game. And I'll go into that in a second. So our Game of Thrones world, to move around, you move around on roads. We don't allow players to roam freely. And one of the reasons we do that is because the world is so big and we have story arcs and we have quests that they need to go on. If we just allow people to roam free, the game would be kind of boring. And we played a lot of games of similar type and allow people to roam free. And a lot of the feedback we were getting is that people didn't like that. They were just found themselves to be directionless. And so we made a conscious decision to say, if you're going to have to run around with your player, you're going to have to do it on our road system. And that really plays into the strategy of the game. So we've allowed the designers to be able to go back in and manipulate roads and how they connect different regions together. So our roads play a big part in the game and in the strategy of the game. Then we have our ground decals that's done by Decals. Decals are placed in the world. So here's an example. You can see our roads that will connect up to different regions. You can see it's a little bit blurry, but you can see some of the decals that we have thrown around to make it look like there's a lot of agriculture going on. Giving the map a little bit more life. We tend to look at it from how the ground looks from an airplane as you're flying over top of it. So we do a lot of other polished steps as well. We have global lighting, regional lighting. We add rivers to the game that animate oceans, again with animations. Lots of particle effects and a lot of UI icons, 3D icons placed throughout the world so the players know where to navigate around. So this is one of our keeps that we have. This is a Stark keep. So these keeps are persistent. As you can see, as you go into here, you'll be able to build up your keep. You'll also be able to customize that. And as you do things like building a building, it might take an hour to build. You can go offline and that building will continue to build for you. So we actually have offline play and we have online play. So again, if we felt our challenges weren't enough, we wanted to challenge ourselves even further and make sure that the game could be played. In the morning, you can pick up the game, play a little bit of it, start doing something, go to work, something will finish in the game, then you can go back to it in the evening. So again, this sort of maps onto a lot of the mid-core products that are out there that are very popular. And again, that's sort of one of the demographics that we go after in this game is definitely a mid-core. So we're not going after a hardcore audience. That was my 30-minute mark. So we're not going after a hardcore audience, we're going after sort of a very mid-core audience. And one of the reasons we feel is that having a nice 3D world like this is something that people find very appealing for this kind of a game. Again, it's going to be played on PC, on the web, but then we can take it to other, delivery systems once we deliver it up on the PC. So we want to make sure that the game that we're creating is very extensible. So again, our biggest technical hurdles that we have to overcome all the time are going to be optimizing this experience and making sure that our servers are optimal as well. So one of the things that we found with some other big games is that when the servers go down, that's it, no one's playing anymore. Since we have our game is split up into multiple servers, one server may be taken down for maintenance, but the rest of the game can still be played. And so we like to have that flexibility to be able to do that, so we don't have to wait till 3 in the morning, take down the servers, and then some of our players in Asia can't play until we get it back up again. We always want the game to be played 24/7, so we don't want to have any one section of it down. So we may be able to just take down certain regions of the game rather than the whole game itself. The other big challenge that you have when you create these really, really big worlds, and big MMOs always have this, is balance. Balance is a huge hindrance for the team. So going back to the game brushes, designers are able to paint on all of those roads and all of the maps and all of the buildings with brushes, and they can do that and change an entire region in less than a day. And that's really important to us to be able to make sure that we get the game feeling just right, is having that flexibility to not just do one thing and then go, okay, well, that's what we're going to have to live with. We want to be able to do it over and over and over again until we get it just right. So, this is just a sort of a quick snapshot of a bit of the game. You have your Starks up in the north, you have your Lannisters in the mid-region, and then you have your Baratheons that are just down the south. The way we've split up, each of those regions is on a different server. And then we have our PvP, where our players will all fight. That's in the middle area, and that, again, that's not just on one server, that's on a giant server. So, we can have up to 10,000, even up to 20,000 people fighting on that one area there. So again, by splitting our game up into these different servers, we could have the Starks limited to 2,000 players, but the PvP area can allow for 10,000 players. So we can have people from different servers jumping into this one area. We can also add in more PvP areas as we like as well. So again, just going back, splitting up those servers has allowed us to have a game that we can really, really expand upon. And that's something that I haven't had in my experience before with some of the MMOs that I've worked on. So again, as I go on in production, I'm always trying to constantly improve on the mistakes that I've made in the past of locking ourselves into a certain design. And so again, this game's no different. I want to make sure that we have the full flexibility to provide the players with the best experience possible. So again, the map is still so huge, but we want to make sure that we can have enough players on it. So again, we use those brushes so that we can constantly iterate on it and make sure that it doesn't feel too crowded. We also do the instancing of the regions once they are filled with players, and this is something that I had described before. Again, there's other areas that we have. People can recognize this. This is sort of a work in progress of King's Landing, where we have a bunch of quests on this. Again, King's Landing also sits on a different server for us as well, so that players can all meet there and do quests together in King's Landing. But we also need to limit the players that go there, because you don't want to go there and see 10,000 other players. You're going to go there and we're going to limit it so you probably only see, if you have your friends that are linked up, you'll always see your friends, and then you may see about 30 or 40 more people there. So for everyone playing the game, they get a little bit of a customized experience. Some of these big MMOs, I'm sure if you've played them, can get really crowded. And that's an experience that I don't want people to have while playing Thrones. We want to make sure that the world feels just right, so it's just not too crowded with players running around. So again, the designers need to split out the PvP region even, because it's so huge. And so we even split that up into different servers as well. And then we also limit what we can see and who we can see in the PvP region. Again, if you have 10,000 players playing in one area, it can look a little crowded. So we also make use of a fog of war. So as players go outside of a certain focal area, they disappear. And that also helps our frame rate as well. Because as the producer, I always demand that we have at least 30 to 40 frames a second running in the game, which can be difficult. Big 3D game, MMO game, running in a web browser. So I always tend to make life difficult for the team. So again, this is an image of one of the other areas of the game in the Riverland, and this will be areas where players will be fighting over for control as one of the factions that you go in. And so I apologize that I can't say everything about the game. So we're working with HBO, and as you know, there's a current season right now out there. So the Game of Thrones, everybody's very private about the property and letting people know spoilers. So unfortunately, I can only show you bits and pieces of the game. I can't show you the entire game. Otherwise, people are going to start figuring out even some of the things from the TV series. So, hopefully in the next few months, I'll be able to share more and more with everybody as we get out there with the game. So again, the world is connected by roads, and we can block off any of the areas by not having the roads lead to them until we're ready to unveil that region. So again, for players, we don't want to have that experience of, oh, hey, this is a dead-end road. They'll simply be areas that they just can't get the camera to go to. As the game goes live and we open up new regions, they'll open up the game, and they'll find, oh, hey, this new area has opened up, or we'll send a message saying this new area has opened up, and they'll be able to go and play in an ever-expanding world that we have. Also, utilizing the roads and the node network gives us really tight control over where the players travel to, and that's a really important part of our gameplay strategy. Again, here's another image of the player roads that kind of spiral out from one point here. It's hard to see here right now. This is an uninhabited region, but you can see each player there will actually own a little plot of land. So you'll be able to build your keep castle in that area and maintain it, and your neighbors or your friends who are playing with you will be able to build their castle beside it. So you'll actually be working cooperatively with your neighbors to take dominance over the world. Again, we're still, even though we have this huge, huge world, we still battle with space. If I go back, we still have, a lot of space here, but as a player, you're going to build up your keep. You're still going to end up filling up the world, and we're going to end up running out of room. So what we've done to get around that is we built another screen. As you zoom the camera in and click on your keep, you're going to go to another screen where you'll get a real close-up view of your castle, and you'll be able to add down buildings and farms and customize it as well. What we found is when we went up to the main map and allowed you to do that, the world looked too busy and it looked confusing and just didn't feel right. So again, we made a conscious decision to bring the players into another screen. And so one of the things that we do really well at Bigpoint is throughout the entire production of the game, I have users and user tests, people sometimes externally, sometimes people internally. Bigpoint is a big company. We've got around 700 or 800 people in Hamburg alone that can help test out our game. So when we do that, we get user scores, and so immediately I can start getting feedback and going, oh, the game's fun in this area, or it's not fun in that area, and start treating it like a live game from the very beginning and making changes to get that perfect sweet spot for the game. So again, with the game world, if you remember, the game is the world is very vertical. We had it originally that players could just run around from one town to another, but the user feedback we got was that was pretty boring. You know, people didn't want to travel for a half hour, 40 minutes just to get from one point to the next. So we made a conscious decision to add in fast travel locations. So these are represented by camps and docks all over the world. So we can allow people to go from, you know, if they want to do a quest at the Wall, you can go from the Lannister region up to the Wall instantaneously. And sometimes you have to you know, have sort of this you know, suspension of, you know, belief to do that. But what really matters in these games is the game has to be fun. It doesn't have to be absolutely real. So again, when you're trying to recreate a IP property like this, you have to have trade-offs as to what's real and what's fun. So we've developed these little army camps that we felt sort of fit in with the IP that you can go to, and once you click on those, we will take you to a strategic map off to the side. And so you can bring up a map, you can click up north into a certain location, go, hey, I want to travel there. And you can also take that map and filter it out by locations, and that allows your player to be able to travel around the world much faster than it would be just traveling on horse. It's kind of like us going to the airport and taking a plane somewhere. So again, we use all the latest tools that we can to build out the map as quickly as possible. Again, for games like this, iteration is the key to a good design. And so we make sure that everything we do, we can iterate on as fast as possible. And everything in the world that we're building can be upgraded or edited. So we require not just one version of every asset, we require sometimes up to 10 or 20 versions of every asset. So every building that you build will have an upgrade layer on it. So, you know, we have a ton of assets in this game that we have to load in and offload, and so we have to be really tricky with how many polys we use to create our models. And one of the things the artists have done really well is give them the models a lot of really rich texture to make it seem like they are much more detailed than they really are, and they've done a fantastic job of that. So again, you know, we'll unveil new regions as the game progresses. Also in the game, as you zoom in, we actually have interesting landmarks and we have interesting animals. We'll have dire wolves up north. So we want to take as much of the experience from the TV show and those little fun things from the TV show, and we have those placed all over the world, so that as you are doing a quest, you're like, oh, I know that, that's great. You know, the brothel in King's Landing, it's there, I can go to it. You know, so again, as a camera will score around here, you know, we also want to make sure that we have a sort of as much variety in the game as possible, so that the regions don't all look alike. I'm showing, most of the stuff that I'm showing you here is just one region. It's the Baratheon region right now, so I'm actually not showing you Lannisters or Starks. So again, there is sort of a, some of the regions that I'm showing you do tend to look a little similar right now. So also with our lighting, so we have one big global light that we can adjust. The artists also have lots of point lights that they can put around each of the regions. And we also have sort of region lights that as you go into a different region, it has the lighting of that. So for instance, if you go to King's Landing, every time you're in the TV series in King's Landing, it's always bright and sunny. So we want to mimic that as well. So whenever you go to King's Landing or travel there, it's always going to be bright and sunny. As you go into the Stark region, it's usually going to be cloudy and raining, kind of like it is outside right now. So we want to make sure that we are able to do the lighting to get the flavor of all of the regions as much as possible. Again, with the water, actually we just We just got our water in, I think, just a couple of weeks ago. It looks really, really good. So we have rivers that flow with the curve of the land. So it's not just one plane that moves around. It actually follows the contours, of the rivers. And so there's a lot of rivers in the game that you have to cross over. We also have oceans. And so, right now we have rivers. Again, we'll have effects in on the side, the river side, so you get a little bit of the waves lapping at the shores as the rivers go down. We'll also have rocks and things that'll have waves around them. So the artists have all the tools at their disposal to make the game look as rich as possible. Again, making sure that everything continues to play in a web browser. So there are times in the game where we throw too much in, too many effects in, too much too much extras, and then the frame rate will dip below 30, and we'll have to figure out another way around that. And that's, for the games that I've worked on, that's always been a challenge of that kind of, crossover, is keep filling up the world, see where it breaks, and then pull back. So, again, also trees, for world building, trees are really important. For a web browser game, doing low poly trees is really difficult to make them look realistic. We can only have sort of so many trees and so many varieties, and you can scale them up and down to make them look different. One of the things that we've also added in to get flavor is a little bit of this low-lying ground fog, to kind of give it a little bit of spooky flavor when you're going up north. We also want to have the trees that'll have snow-filled trees up in the top. Some of these trees aren't just individual trees, they're actually clumps. And as the camera moves back, the tree model will actually become sort of one model. And then as you zoom even further back, it'll just become one texture. So again, doing trees in games takes a lot of experimentation to make sure that they look just right. We see trees every day of our lives, so we know exactly what they should look like. We've flown over trees, it's something that's always in our world. So we're able to spot it when it doesn't look right. And so that's always the challenge with art, is trying to make sure that the trees look right. So again, artists will go through and work a lot to make the trees look absolutely perfect. So, what's next for us? Obviously, shipping the game. That's next. That's kind of a big thing for us. But beyond that, when we have a game like this, it's interesting with web games. It used to be that you would put out a web game and you had it play for a certain device, either low specs. The luxury that we have right now with current specs is that you can put out a 3D browser game now, and you can have it so that it automatically modifies to play on a low spec machine. So for instance, we can use a certain LOD system for low spec machines. We could turn off shadows. High-end machines, we could turn everything back on. And that's another thing, as I look at it, as a game progresses in its life cycle, 2 or 3 years from now, we may want to go back in and redo a lot of the art and make it even higher resolution. We may want to look at some of the new graphic cards and what they can do, and add in other things like physics. So again, as we build these games, it used to be you sort of fire and forget, build a game, and it kind of looked pretty outdated in a year or two. But what we want to do right now is make sure that this game can live on, again, for 10 years and be something that we can continually edit and continually upgrade so that the game always looks current. And that is something that most of these games haven't had the ability to do, because we're not just building, Game of Thrones as a game. We're actually building I call it a service. So we're creating a service that has to live on. Players are going to go in there, they're going to invest in their keeps, they're going to really get ownership over their little area of Westeros, and we want to make sure that they can invest in that and have fun playing that over the many years. The other things that we want to do is we have a game that's based on Game of Thrones, and so we know there's going to be another series next year. We've got this season, there's going to be another season. So nothing stops Mr. Martin, who wrote the books, from doing more books and doing more series based on Westeros. There could be something where they base a TV show on the, I might as well just go to the screen here, based on, the prehistory of the TV show. So again, we want to have a game that can take part in all of that, take in the whole lore. And I would say, the great thing about what HBO and Mr. Martin have done and what they are doing is they're creating a really great world that's so rich that can live on for a long time, much like I look at, what Tolkien has done with the Lord of the Rings and Middle-earth. You see there's a number of games around Middle-earth that different games and different books can take in any direction they want. I really see Westeros going in this direction as well, where you'll have other stories and other spin-offs, riding off of these series and going in different areas. So we want to have a game in a game world that can take into account and react to what happens to those, so that as fans of Game of Thrones, you can be watching the TV series and then you can also be playing the game. And we want to get as sort of as much crossover as we possibly can. How am I doing for time? I think, well, maybe I realize I've done this much faster, which is this personal first for me. I usually go way over. But maybe what we can do is we can open it up for questions.
Okay, thank you, Michael. As a start, I would like to ask, how do you manage all the creation and production with IP holder? So how is it connected to development team? How do you collect the questions and maybe some prohibitions from the HBO? You for example, you aren't allowed to do something. So just
right. So the question is, how do I manage the relationship with HBO? And that's a great question. So I sit on a call with HBO every week. We also, everything we do on the art side, we do concepts. And we provide those concepts to HBO. And some of those concepts will go, one, through their legal department, and then it will go through the production people on the TV series, and then it will eventually make its way to Mr. Martin. So we actually have a multi-level sign-off process here. So again, my job is sort of made a little bit more difficult, where I have to kind of keep ahead of that. So if we build anything that hasn't been signed off on, HBO can come back and say, you know what, that doesn't fit the TV series, and you're going to have to change it. So again, we have spreadsheets where it's like signed off on, ready for production. So we have a pretty good process where we have a series of sign-offs, and then we can go into production from there.
So, and if you do something wrong, Mr. Martin will come, and the next book you will be dead or something?
No, we're, Mr. Martin isn't going to come and get angry with us, and no one's going to lose their head. We usually for the stuff we're doing, we've already had enough conversations, so we're not going to deviate too far. Again, our conversations are, and I'm serious, sometimes over a button on a on a shirt of one of the characters. The buildings that we're doing are variants of a theme. So when we're doing the keeps of the Starks, we're not doing the Starks as you see them in the TV show. We're doing what would a lord in the Stark region build as their keep, and what would that look like, and how would they do that? Because generally, and this works in real life, is generally if you have a king or a lord, some of the people tend to start dressing like them, and so we've kind of taken that as one of our design keys for doing the world.
Okay, thank you. The questions here.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting. So my question is, do you have dragons in a game or some pet systems?
Oh, sorry, could you...
do you have dragons? Pet system... So, dragons.
Oh, dragons.
Dragons,
yeah. Thank you.
Have dragons or some pet system?
Well, so in the TV series, the dragons have not yet gotten to Westeros. And so that's going to be sort of anyone's guess. So we will do what the TV series does. And so if the TV series has the dragons going to Westeros, then at some point in the game, dragons will go to Westeros.
Next question. Anyone?
Yeah, so about
Ex-
Westeros,
Oh.
is there any plans to cover not only Westeros, but Bravos and the Thracian lands and everything?
Right, yeah, so the question is, are we going to go to Bravos and sort of get off of Westeros? So we've done a little bit in the TV series. They show that area over there. We, as designers, we weren't able to tie that in as closely as we wanted to, so we've left that off for now, but that option is still there, that we can open up that region. So that would be something that we would look at later on. Maybe we'd open up that region, and first maybe you'd do a quest there, but then again, maybe you would actually have something that has a full base there.
Okay, so if it's not a secret, is there any ETA for that? Like year 2 or I don't know?
So is there any secret to?
ETA.
No. So ETA to the game coming out or to that region being shown?
Okay.
So are you?
No, I mean the region, showing off another regions.
No, I mean we haven't even said when we're going to release the game yet. So for us, we can't even say at which
step,
point we're going to do that.
Okay, thank
So
you very much.
you can ask me again once the game launches.
Okay.
Then I'll know.
Okay,
I
thank
have
you.
a question too. Hello. Well, first of all, I would like to know what kind of role the player will have in this world. You said that you won't have dragons in Westeros until they venture there through the series. So I think that player, for example, cannot be a king in the north and he cannot take over the King's Landing. Or will he be able to do so? Which is his role? Could he be a king?
So I'm not going to give away. So the question is, what is the player's role? Will they be able to take over King in the North or King's Landing?
Yes.
So I'm not going to answer the last part of that because I'd be giving away too much. But as the player, as a player, you're a lord. As you come into the game, you're a lord or you're a liege in the game. So you'll be sort of responsible for your own house. So again, you're going to be building a castle. So you won't be coming in as as one of the characters from the TV series. You're going to come in as your own player, sort of customize the experience. So again, it's an MMO. We want players to come in as themselves and live in the world. It's like, what would this world be like if you were a lord or liege and at building your own castle? Who would you align yourselves with? Where would you want to live in Westeros?
So you won't take part in the big politics of the Seven Houses. You will be some kind of a minor family that.
Oh no, you will. You will. But
okay.
I'm not going to tell you how you will.
And the second question is I've figured through your screenshots, the game will be somewhere similar to the Mountain Blade type, but with more strategic influence. There will be more resources than just gold and people, yes?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I also have a question about monetization. You didn't mention any money.
So the question is about monetization and money. So Bigpoint as a publisher, all of Bigpoint's games are free to play, and this game will be no different. My job, and I actually just gave a talk a little while ago about free to play and being fair and being ethical. So one of my philosophies as a producer in working on the free to play games is again, not having a game that's pay to win, not having a game that's limited by what I call paywalls every few minutes. So I don't want to have it so the player plays for 5 minutes, then it's like, hey, give us $10 to progress to the next level. So we want to have a really solid base. I'm selling, in a sense, when you see the game, I'm selling you a piece of real estate that you're going to invest in. You get to live in one area and build it up, over the space of years. Again, there's going to be customization options. There's going to be convenience features that you buy. There's also going to be features that you'd have, again, you have a game that comes in. We can throw so much into the game in terms of the UI, but you start, in games like this is difficult because you have mid-core players and then you will have your hardcore players. Your hardcore players want to see the game in much more detail than your mid-core players. So again, there'll be features that we would use to monetize and sell those to the hardcore players so that they can customize their game experience while not taking it down for the mid-core players and cluttering up all of the UI. generally hardcore players want to get in behind the scenes and see what the game is doing.
Okay. Okay.
Question here.
Where am I looking?
Here. So do you have some global market or unique resources for some regions and trading them between those regions?
So the question is, do we have trading in the game? We're looking into it. I'm interested in that. Having, part of it is the Game of Thrones world. You do have markets. For instance, King's Landing has stores. They have armories. They have all sorts of areas like that. Same thing with a lot of the villages. We're trying to recreate not just Westeros, but actually the economy of Westeros. What would actually players be trading with each other? What would players be buying? What would players be raiding from other players? So again, in any MMO like this, the economy plays a big part, and managing your resources. We want to make it so that players don't come in and destroy their economy right away, but we also want to make it it's also, as you have your friends coming in and playing with you, they can help you out with the economy. Again, having some notion where you can gift or trade or go to a marketplace. Those are all ideas that we like to entertain, but I don't, again, I can't share too much what we have.
I have another two questions. First, do you plan to integrate with social networks, for example, with Facebook? Will this give a player some kind of a benefit or no?
So the question is, will we have any kind of integration with Facebook? I love, what I love about Facebook is I can invite, people can invite their friends, and that's sort of the first job. If you just come in to play any kind of game, you would have to recreate your entire friends list. The thing that Facebook brings is that, hey, these are all my friends. These are the friends that I play games with. Boom, boom, boom. I invite them to my game. So that's, if I have any kind of Facebook integration, it's going to be to pilfer your friends list so that you can bring them in. We are not a Facebook game. Bigpoint is a publisher. We actually have our own game portal that you'll go to, download the game. But many of our games actually do have Facebook integration, even at the PC level, just so you can invite your friends. We also have it so you can invite, your Google friends. You can invite people who have your Yahoo mail list. Those are all kind of things, especially social features for any modern MMO or any game like this it's an absolute necessity, unless you want people just to play a game by themselves. That's not this kind of game. And even most Bigpoint games are meant to be played multiplayer.
Will you motivate players to invite their friends through Facebook, let's say, incentivize them somehow, give them gold or something?
I gave a talk, again, I gave a talk a while back, and again, that sort of just fits into my whole philosophy about free-to-play. If you invite friends, I want to incentivize you to invite friends. So even if you do it through Facebook or Yahoo, I want to make sure that you get something, whether that's resources or what have you. But you should always reward your players for inviting their friends.
That's great to hear. And the second question, which markets are you plan to target first during your release? And do you plan to go to Asia afterwards?
So those are great questions. The question is, which markets are we going to go out in? So the beautiful thing about working with HBO is they provide details so I can see where all the Game of Thrones fans are worldwide and see which countries the TV series is popular in. I can also take a look at where MMO games and games more like ours with our game mechanics are popular as well, and overlay those and then make choices about where we go out. Again, for me, when I make a game, the world is the option. Eventually as the game rolls on, we just want to get into as many marketplaces as we can. Obviously, there's certain marketplaces that would be fans of this game and fans of Game of Thrones. So my first intention is to look at where the Game of Thrones fans are and get into those markets as fast as possible.
Well, let's say, for example, if there is a big fan base here in Russia, would you localize the game straight out of the box and target Russian market as the first one? But
so Game of Thrones is very, very popular in Russia. I think, and I may be wrong here, I don't know if any of the cable providers run it. I think it actually is more popular. I think it may be more popular as a pirated TV series. And I think, I'm not going to speak for HBO, but I think they know this. But again, the show's popularity, regardless of how it gets to the viewers, is better for them. You know, again, anything that people go. So I do look at Russia, and I do have the numbers that the game is very popular here. Russia, for the games that I make in MMOs, is a market that I put all the games that I've ever made into Russia, so I don't see any difference why it would be different this time.
Actually, we have a guy here who runs in Russia.
Oh, nice.
Thank you.
Awesome.
So, Michael,
Thank you.
can I have 5 minutes of your time after the presentation to talk about the localizing the product and the game you will be presenting
Awesome.
in Russia? Because it's
This
really
is how
interesting for
business
us.
works.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, that
Good
was
stuff.
the last question. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.